All right, here we are, another episode of Let There Be Talk. This episode is brought to you by my fantastic sponsor, El Cajon Harley. El Cajon Harley down in San Diego. I was just there this weekend for a little St. Patrick's Day party, and I watched the brand new Road King special get sold right in front of my face. Brand new. It was on the floor for 10 minutes. These guys have an amazing selection of motorcycles. Get down there. I spent the whole day with them. We had a great time. Greg Riley and my boy Brett. And they serviced up my bike. I got the oil change. They put on some heated grips for me. And yeah, man, had a great time. Go down there. They got a special on boots right now. It's March Madness, $25 off all boots. Get your boots. These boots were made for marching, right? No, it's walking. But anyway, Harley Davidson, El Cajon Harley Davidson, no other. Get your motorcycle there, nowhere else. Fly in, they'll pick you up. You can ride home. They got financing, and they got all kinds of used motorcycles. And check my Instagram. I fired up some photos of what they got on the floor right now. Great dealer, El Cajon Harley. All right, let's get into the episode. Great guest today. My Toronto friend is here. Todd Shapiro, how are you, buddy?
Dude, Dean, this is unbelievable. I'm great. You know, I've gotten to know sort of a bunch of guys out in the LA area, and it's been nice because I feel like, a few of them have accepted me. And, I listen to the podcast. I most recently listened to your podcast with Bill Paxton. Fuck.
Oh, yeah.
That was deep, man. Yeah. And I'm very grateful to be here.
Yeah, man. Let's give a little rundown. You're a radio guy in Toronto that I met when Redban and I went up there to do shows. We were headlining, and Redban set it up to come down and do your show, and we've been friends ever since. I've done your show numerous times. It's on XM radio, and it's the Todd Shapiro Show, and it's not just in Canada. It is also in the States. At what time in the States?
So we're 4 p.m. Eastern, so it would be 1 to 3 if we're here Pacific time. Channel 168 on SiriusXM. Kind of cool working on Sirius, knowing that 34 million people, 31 million being in the States, 3 million being in Canada who subscribe can get it. So it's and then I actually own the rights to it. So I put it up as a podcast as well. So I'm very lucky. I get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, that is great. I mean, my dream is to get on Sirius Radio. I don't know why. You know what I mean? Most people's dream is to get your podcast bigger and bigger. And then you're your own boss, which I get, which is cool too. But man, just to have a little help on getting guests and getting the show even bigger. So you have the best of both worlds because you are on Sirius Radio, and then you can put it out as a podcast.
100%. And no doubt the brand name helps when you reach out to people to try and get big guests. And what also helps is just residual listeners coming in, basically, who are just flipping through channels, never heard of you. So there's always really an opportunity for someone to check out a show every day. As opposed to a podcast, it's a little more word of mouth. It's a little more like, over time and longevity, people find it. But with Sirius, if you're a subscriber, you'll and say you search comedy, there's not that many comedy stations in all of them. There may be about 6 to 8.
Yep.
So we're considered one of the comedy stations called Canada Laughs. So yeah, for me, the best part, man, is getting listeners calling you from Pittsburgh, calling you from Cleveland, calling you from out here in California, and it's always amazing to me. And it's a good place to be.
It's a tough market, Sirius Radio. It's weird because I've owned a few motorcycles with XM Radio, Sirius Radio, and I had a car last year with Sirius Radio in it, and I really don't understand why anybody would not have it once you have it,
Well, especially if you're like a Bruce Springsteen fan or a Pearl Jam fan,
Grateful Dead like me. Oh, the Dead channel,
right?
They even got a Parrot Head channel. Jimmy Buffett,
that's
hilarious.
Like Frank Sinatra. Like God, they love the old guys love it. And I guess at the end of the day, it's people who have a little bit more disposable income. But I think that you commonly hear that for people who actually drive a lot and people who get it, they never get rid of it.
Yeah.
You get the free trials and everything. It's the other part though is there's a lot of people who don't necessarily drive a lot. I know that they're working on the app. The app game's huge for all of us.
That's the problem, man. Their app is no good right now. I'm not clowning on them, but
that's fine.
I would definitely. I tried the app. And if you look at the reviews on the app, whew, man, they're bad. It's interesting that they do not have the app game down yet because, man, I would own that channel in a minute, like at the gym, just to be able to listen to like Howard Stern at the gym, you know, and also that for a while they had the Zeppelin channel, just whatever.
Wow. Yeah.
To have it on my phone because I don't have a car. You know what I mean? And also to be able to fly it right here onto my home stereo. I know they have that home unit, the portable unit where you can go to the car and stuff, but I don't want to mess with that. It's all about that phone, man.
Yeah, I think that definitely the app has gotten better. I don't know. I'm not behind like too many of those closed door meetings and stuff, but they are working on that. And I even know Stern's deal was like a big part of it was how it's going to go into the digital world, the digital space within the next like 7 to 10 years and stuff. So
on his newest deal,
yeah, which was only about a year and a half ago, I believe. And then he did like a 10 to 12 year deal, but it didn't even involve only doing the show on Sirius. It's like, how does he transform everything into the space, which is the most important as well, on the phone.
You and I were talking. We had dinner a couple nights ago, and you know, a lot of people asked me, "What would be your dream gig?" Mine is to be able to do comedy every night, small theaters, and during the day, you know, have a show on Sirius that eventually, I always say, Howard's got to retire one day or another. You know, who's going to pick up his audience? You know what I mean? And you and I were talking, it seems that like Howard should run that show like Johnny Carson did, where he starts grooming a couple guys. Like every Friday I take off and, you know, Joan Rivers takes my seat. That's what Johnny would do. It'd be Joan Rivers. It would be, there was like 3 different people. I think Letterman did it for a bit, you know, different guys. But Jay Leno would do it a bit, and then eventually they're grooming the person for when the guy splits.
Sure, you're mentoring the next talent coming in, and you know, one of my goals is to meet Howard Stern first, and I often wonder if I would have the balls to say to him, like, dude, like, you know, the platform itself, something that you're heavily invested in, you know, in being a shareholder and a major shareholder, and how do you keep this going for the next 20, 30, 50 years? It's about grooming that talent you mentioned. So is it me? Is it a guy like Jason Ellis who's huge out here? You know, there's obviously certain talent that still do pretty good on it, Opie, or a guy like Ron Bennington and stuff. But how do you kind of get younger guys? And the analogy I gave you over that dinner was like hockey players do it all the time. You see old guys, as they get to the sort of their tail ends of their career, they really take guys under their wing, like a Mario Lemieux with Sidney Crosby, that type of thing. And I often wonder if egos are just big in this insecure industry. Radio guys are typically like, we're kind of really fucking into ourselves. Yeah. We're very self-indulgent. We're very protective of a space where we're all kind of trying to get only a certain amount of listeners. And of course, Stern, in my opinion, doesn't need to be that way.
No.
He is truly, in my opinion, the king of all media. What he has done in his career is absolutely phenomenal, and from terrestrial now to what he's done for SiriusXM, and being a pioneer and pushing the envelope and getting canned and getting new jobs and still continuing to push the envelope. He was doing the craziest stuff beyond anybody, and I think it would be important for him not only to hone some other new talent, but to remind them that you always got to keep pushing the envelope, because that's another thing a lot of radio people are so afraid of because of the big conglomerates who own it. So I think it's a mixture of both. It's like not only, hey, let's groom you into being great, but let's remind you that you got to fucking do things differently, because if you don't, you're just going to fall off anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they're always battling for subscribers and stuff. And in this world, there's so much now. It's fucking Netflix, it's Hulu, it's CISO, it's XM Radio. Where does your dollars go, you know? And that's a battle to do. But to me, it always goes to where the quality is. And that Sirius Radio really is mind-boggling to me. It's so weird that terrestrial radio still exists. And I was talking to a few DJs recently, and they said it's still fucking huge, man. Like, it's still, there's DJs out there making $2 million a year.
Yep.
You know, which blew my fucking head off. And there's people that listen to that stuff every morning, and it's just insane to me, that morning zoo with minimal fucking any kind of music, or just, you know, the same old fart jokes and prank calls and all that shit. It blows my mind.
People are creatures of habit.
Yeah.
I feel like that. And the other thing I think that contributes to people still listening to terrestrial radio is that it's typically older people. And I think for the younger people, they're just not listening to radio in general.
No, they listen to podcasts.
Yeah, they listen.
Sure.
So they go to podcasts. So I think the next 10 years will really be a very true indicator of where all this is going. We still got about 10 years.
Yeah.
Because you got those who are dying off and they're not going to need to listen to terrestrial radio. You got this new generation who, I think they'd probably rather put on a fucking YouTube star than a morning radio guy, you know, in terms of listening. And also I think Wi-Fi being heavily available in most cars now, and soon all cars will just have Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I think that's really going to change the game.
Oh, totally. Because then you could just stream your, you could stream anything. You could actually listen to like YouTube stuff, or you could just have all the podcasts going, without using your phone, all that. That's definitely going to change the game.
I think that will really do it. And I don't know, do people in their towns, wherever they're listening, in their cities, do they want to hear someone maybe relate to them where a pothole on a street is, or what the actual weather is in the location they're in, or what's that news story from their city or town? Maybe people will want that. But I don't know. It's so easy to find that too, just like from a quick Google search in the morning.
Twitter.
So
just your Twitter feed just tells you what's going on.
Exactly. So I think it has to be always, and it's the old school game. It's the old school thought, which is just compelling, engaging, and different. And terrestrial radio is not that way. But I think once those creatures of habits die off, literally, or those creatures, will die off. It'll be a fun place. And you're doing it right.
Yeah.
This whole podcasting scene out in LA between all you guys and all you great comedians, that's, to me, listen, I always say to people, if I had the ability coming from a terrestrial background, if I was rich enough, say, to buy a radio station, the very first thing I would do is fire everyone and hire comedians, or just do a 24-hour cycle of podcasts.
Yeah, we were talking about that. It's a podcast channel.
A podcast channel. And that way the podcasters love the fact that there's sort of some radio. It kind of validates it a little bit. I think there's always that with a podcaster.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair to say. And those who don't say it.
Well, I know podcasting, I think one of the reasons it's so big is you can stop and start wherever you want. So you're commuting, you stop it, go to work, and on the way home, you listen to the rest of it. Or, you're working at work and you're doing data entry or some boring ass mindless job, and you can just go from show to show to show. So the radio could work. I think it would have to almost be the greatest hits each week of like, here's who had the great guests and great shows this week, or whatever. I don't know how it would work.
Yeah, and I haven't thought it through that much. But
the freedom of listening to whenever the fuck you want is the number one thing of podcasting,
Yes, you tune in, and then you can tune out, and you're right. You pick it right back up. It's essentially like a series on Netflix. It's sort of that same kind of style on how you listen. But, if I'm I don't know. I just think to myself always, I'm from Toronto, as you said, Toronto, Canada. And the radio there is absolutely shit. Like, it is so bad, it's almost embarrassing. And one of the things being a radio guy, I've always been embarrassed telling people I'm a radio guy because of the 98% of the others who are doing this kind of stuff, who don't even know how to have a long-form conversation, who are the type of people who generally need to have the last laugh just to make themselves feel better about it, even though you're talking to guests that are way funnier than you. So why would you ever even want that? Why would you even have that theory? But my point being is that I just start to think, if I'm in a car and I still don't know how to Bluetooth, and I still don't know about the Wi-Fi connect and get it into the speaker, but I just start flipping the channels, and I find that one that has these great conversations, that's the one I'm going to want to listen to at the end of
NPR
the day.
is fucking massive, because it's so good, A lot of people just love to get into that, car space and learn shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so funny you say that. I tell my bosses over at Sirius, you know me, I'm not the funniest of guys, but I think I'm a good conversationalist whenever I get to, have a lot of fun with people, which makes the show fun typically every day. By the way, Jamie Masada always told me from the Laugh Factory, never tell anyone you're not funny, buddy. But it's like, never tell anyone that. And now I don't even remember where I was going with this. Fuck.
We're talking about learning stuff.
Yeah. I always say to my boss, I'm like, if you're not, like, as long as my listeners are like either laughing or learning, meaning if I'm laughing or if I'm learning, that's how you know you're putting out good podcasts, good radio, good entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I always try to seek guests that are outside the box. I don't necessarily love to have a guest on that's only coming to promote the new film or record. that has no interest to me at all because they're going to go say the same 10 answers on 20 shows that week.
Those junkets are hilarious. Like how they do it, it amazes me actually.
Yeah, and I keep telling people like, they're like, hey, I got such and such coming out. I'd like to come to your show. And I go, yeah, but you don't understand. My show is, I need to have it like interesting. If they see 20, like, Billy Bob's new record's out this week, and then you see it in these 20 podcasts. Why would it's just the same. It's only good for him. It's not good show.
I think the problem is the like vanilla audiences who just they could go and watch that guy one night on a Fallon and the next night on a Kimmel or like and promoting the same thing and here. I never understood that it's all about mediocrity at that point. And I get the plug and I get the promotion aspect of it. That's very important. But you're right. I'm worried that most audiences, sadly, don't want new. They're comfortable. They're comfortable.
I don't know about that. I think my audience or a lot of podcast audience they're so big because they're tired of that bullshit.
That's fair. Sorry. Yeah. And I'm talking, I'm talking about the law of averages, right. but definitely you guys are breaking the mold.
Most people, when they're throwing on a late show, it's just something to fall asleep to. They're getting ready to go to work tomorrow. They're trying to, get rid of their fucking, their stress. They're laying there and they need people to tell them what is coming out for them to go spend their money on. We're podcast fans, they're already kind of hip. They're like, oh, I already got this guy's record last week. You know what I mean? If it's something good, they're seeking it out way ahead of time. They want to hear on a podcast the stuff, it's like what I call deep tracks on a record. Like when I go to somewhere and the band plays only the hits, I'm like, wow, really? Yeah,
I know exactly what you mean, but I was thinking about this, and you're such a music guy, and I was just thinking this on my way over here. By the way, it sucked getting over here. There's like a LA marathon, and
who cares?
Shutting down a whole city.
Who cares?
That's pathetic.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of, when it comes to music, I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but a greatest hits guy.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that, and I think my tastes were so eclectic, like anything from rap to old school rock to whatever it might have been, and I think part of the reason is I never focused on a genre, which is why I like greatest hits mostly. What did you have like a genre you focus on? I know your music knowledge is like,
I listen to everything.
You listen to everything,
but the thing is, to me, it was like, of course you like the hit song. That's what brings you in. It's like the first bump of Coke. If you like it, you're going to keep going. So if I like the hit, let's say, I always use this as an example, Rolling Stones' Tattoo You record. The single on it was Start Me Up. I could give a fuck about that song. It drew me in. Of course, I love the song. But after 1 million times of hearing it at sporting events and nightclubs and on the radio, classic rock, all that song does not interest me anymore. And what really interests me is track 8, Slave, or Tops, or, why did they choose Waiting on a Friend? This kind of stuff, you know what I mean? And that song almost irks me.
Huh.
You know what I mean? So like when I'm saying when a guy's on a show.
Yeah.
And he's doing a press junket. Let's say, like my dream guest would be Matt Dillon. Let's say he's got a new movie coming out. Of course, I want to hear about 5 minutes of your new movie, but let's talk about Drugstore Cowboy.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the days when you were way before podcasting and deep interviews. Maybe you would get one good interview in Rolling Stone if they were on the cover, or a New York Times or something, but nothing like you could get now. Like, what was it like to be on the set with Coppola? The Outsiders, all those guys. Was it weird? All that shit that is just skimmed over now on masterpieces. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you don't learn anything about the person,
right.
Really. And at the end of the day, that's a waste of time. I was listening to with you and Bill Paxton, going back to that, and how emotional it must have been for you after and everything. And I didn't listen to the podcast yet where you talk about how you couldn't believe he was gone. But what amazed me by that, like, the most fascinating story in that podcast for me with you and him was when he started talking about wanting to meet Steven Spielberg.
Right.
And like, I just think here's a guy at a level that so many people would want to be at in life. Yet there's still a mentor and an idol that he had to try and have a conversation with, and it never really worked out. He never really liked sort of the ideas he was pitching to him and stuff. And sometimes he didn't even heard from him. And like, that's a story that is golden, and that's the type of stuff I think you're referring to, which is like you're getting into. I mean, he probably hasn't even told too many people that in his entire life, let alone now your entire audience.
And to lay out there and show the humanity of here's a guy who's a massive star. That kind of shit hits me as awesome knowledge and wisdom of like, wow, thank you for that nugget, man. You know,
no question about it, and I love it because a lot of people, and maybe not entertainers, just people in general, they always feel like, and I'm talking conjecturally right now, sadly, but they feel like they don't need help. They don't need wisdom from others. They're going to figure it out when they're 40, when they're 50. No, every year, every day, you need to take something else in from someone else that can help shape you, help change you, and help evolve you. And I love this shit because these guys are the cream of the crop. They're multimillionaires already. They're massive entertainers, but the goal is to always get better.
Well, all the greats, if you really look at it, it's never about the money. And that's what I talked to you about it. It's like, I'm not going to do something for money. Like when we were talking about that stupid ass barbecue commercial the guy wanted me to do, he wanted me to promote this dumb fucking barbecue. And when he offered me this money and I said no, and I think it was $2,000. I was laughing. I said, $2,000? No. And he, well, how much? I said 20, because I knew he would say no, and 20 would make me question. It's more than I made last year. So if I had to do a dumb barbecue commercial, but I could get a full-blown new podcast set up or live for a year
it's
doing
a great
comedy,
investment now for you.
Yeah, now I can say no to shitty comedy shows and only do stuff that's not going to steal my soul, But, a lot of people don't understand all those guys. It's not really about the money. It's about what are you putting out there in the world, And that's how I look at this podcast. Not like some fucking ego weirdo. What I'm saying, though, is like if I die in a couple years, like, will people still go back and want to listen to those? It's
like an old record.
Right. It's not fart and poop jokes.
Sure.
It's like, wow, these are some great fucking interviews.
And it's not time-stamped either, which is nice.
Right. That's why I don't like those junket interviews, of just like, oh, well, why do I want to listen to that? He's just promoting a movie that came out 5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, as great as Matt Damon were to come on and talk about The Great Wall or whatever, it's like, okay, but you're not going to listen to that 6 months from now.
Nope.
That's brilliant. I never thought of it that way. And I think my show probably has a combination of a little bit of both.
Right.
But radio tends to promote more as opposed to...
I get it. I think it's something, when you're growing up, I love Porky's, the movies, I love Howard Stern, I love Fart Joke. I'm not some idiot where I'm just like, I'm not a snob or whatever. But eventually you like deeper funny when you get into like Young Frankenstein or something. You're like, why is this so fucking classic?
Well, I always use George Carlin as the best example.
Exactly.
Like he was a prophet on him. Like you sat there and you were like going to your form of religion. Like you were learning from him through laughter. Exactly. He was so deep, and sometimes he didn't even end some of his latter shows. He didn't even end them with jokes. Like he ended them with like motivational talks.
Yep.
And to try and help change people from their common thought, that bullshit we're talking about, where people are so vanilla, like go against the grain a little bit.
Yeah. And I get it. The world is stressed out. And a lot of people sometimes really don't want to think. They just need some mindless stuff. And I get it. Fuck it. Let's sit down and
I wish I could. I can't anymore. I can't like... I know what you mean. I can't dumb down anymore.
Yeah.
I think too much. I worry too much. I worry a lot. I worry financially a lot is the truth.
Yeah.
I worry about the state of my child. I have a little kid now. I'm like, well, shit, should we have brought a kid into this fucking world? Like I start to think that way.
Yep.
I wish ignorance is bliss. Like I wish I was ignorant at times.
Yeah, I try to go and like people will send me a YouTube video and they'll be like, "This is hilarious," and then I look at it and go, Man, you just stole 3 minutes of my life. That's not hilarious.
Like people bathing in a gummy bears or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck's going on there?
Chris Rock last night at the store is fucking hilarious. Dave Chappelle is hilarious. This is just like, it's like, I don't need, it's like, why do you have that much time in your life?
Listen, your world, Dean, is the comedic world and the live stage performance where people actually, well, some don't anymore, but you got to put your phones down. You got to pay attention. You got to listen. You got to be entertained so raw, so authentically. It is the most fascinating, brilliant world, and one I've only really gravitated to in the last 3 years with this new show on Sirius. Before, we were more fart and poop humor and prank calls, and I was a street guy, and I did that whole entire. I should tell you some fun things I did in the day. We did have I'm not, It
was kind of Tom Greenish, right?
It was Tom Greenish, like I'd wake up hockey players before they'd go play a big game against the Leafs, where we're from.
I was
Toronto.
reading like you would go ask your grandma sex questions.
Yeah, like it was very. Listen,
I mean that's that stuff of like 80s and 90s morning radio kind of stuff.
And
right?
I didn't even know. Like I just kind of did it. Like there
but
was
it's morning zoo kind of stuff.
It was morning
right?
zoo shit. And I always say that I don't regret any of it, but I wouldn't do 90% of it ever again.
Right.
So, but in this space, what you're doing in comedy, something that I'm not a comedian, by the way.
You tried a couple nights ago.
Oh, fuck. I apologize. I apologize for that. But I got up on stage.
Yeah, fuck it.
And I'll tell you, man, I was like, not to be very serious, Dean, I was shitting blood.
Well, I'll tell you what.
I was so nervous. I drank so much.
Yeah.
It was, for a guy who's entertained for 19 years, and I've been on a million stages and hosted events, but never tried to be funny at those events. I'm a little sick today. Like it knocked the fuck out of me, that one performance.
Yeah.
And that's why I admire what you guys do so much.
Well, you realize once you're on, this isn't just, you think you got 5 minutes of material, and then if they don't laugh, you have 1 minute. You know what I mean? And all that. And you did like the classic, like I said, you did the stuff of like, I know what you're thinking. I look like such and such, or what, you know what I mean? And that's all standard.
I wanted to be self-deprecating, only because I know I look like a douchebag. So I wanted to let the audience. But that's all standard stuff, and I get it, like but that's when you realize, oh, this is a whole different game. Yeah.
And just imagine you've been on stage and you've been on the radio and you've had a microphone in your hand and you've had some lights in your face. But imagine the person who does it their first time, who's like maybe the construction worker or the housewife, like let's say Roseanne Barr. Imagine these people that never, ever had a microphone in their hand, never had a spotlight in their face, knowing how powerful that is, and never seen people looking back at them. Imagine the jolt that they got. Like me, I played music 25 years.
So at least you had some experience just on a stage.
But I do remember back to that first time at a keg party, playing the first gig, and I didn't want to do it. And there was like 50 people at this keg party, and we're going to play cover songs, and we're doing like Breaking the Law by Judas Priest and stuff, and I didn't want to go out there. I was fucking horrified, and I was the class clown, and I was the guy that could talk to anybody, but now I had to step out at a keg party, and that's even easier, where people are drunk and shit and know you. But imagine an open mic, walk on, and you got to do 3 minutes your first time. I can't imagine what that would be like.
And good for those people who do it. When you put it into, when you give me perspective like that, I mean, good for, and go and try it, right? Because at the end of the day, you got nothing to lose. Like if there's someone listening right now and it's a big, it's inspiring to them. Like get out there, try it. If you bomb, you bomb. You know what?
It doesn't matter. If you bomb, it's better to bomb on stage than bomb in life.
That's fucking brilliant. And I bombed the other night. The show didn't bomb, but I bombed. We did something at the Laugh Factory.
You tried it.
No, I literally called my wife. She's like, how'd it go? I go, I was shit, but back to the zero regrets. Like, I fucking did it.
Yeah.
And perception's great too. You come back home to Toronto. You're on the Laugh Factory stage. They don't know that I sucked up there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just tell people I killed it.
Hilarious.
But asked me back. I just, you know what? I got my family I got to take care of. I can't leave.
Yeah, actually, there's 4 agents in the crowd. They're like, leave Toronto.
Yeah, I'm like, listen, guys, you can't afford me.
But it's really an interesting thing also I've learned from being on radio, like being on radio with you. There's 2 types of guys that go on, I think, as comedians. There's guys that are naturally funny.
Yes.
And they can just riff on phone calls and they can riff on your questions and everything. And then there's those dudes that hand the bits to the dude, basically, and then you're serving them up, which is always just like, oh, man. You know?
And that's how that's what talk shows are, right?
Yeah,
exactly. They plan the bit, you go on, and you know what amazes me most is that I bet you there's probably 80% of people out there, and again, I'm just throwing out fucking numbers, that don't even know that that's a planned bit. Pretty much every night you're watching a talk show, they have planned where that interview is going to go.
Well, the producers, you know, to me, if they would just take a chance. How about just let the comic, the reason they hand him the bits is the producers are worried the show's not going to be good. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so you got some bits he can throw at you because, you know, I guarantee if you put 90% of the comics on who are big up in the game right now and just solo it with the dude with no bits, they're going to crush it anyway because their mind works different.
They're spinning everything. They're always turning things.
But I think that's too dangerous for the networks, and they're like, uh-oh, where could it go? We better not. We got to keep it safe. We don't want you to go into this. It'll piss off this sponsor or that sponsor or whatever, you know?
Well, that's a big one. I always think of when Louis C.K. when he did Saturday Night Live, and he did that. And that, I think, I don't know if he had told people he was going to do that, but
of course, he told you got to run the
monologue. Do you? Okay, I didn't know about that because I'm like, that's one of those ones where I feel like they would have asked him not to. You know what I mean? He really went for it.
You know, you gotta look at Lauren. You know, if you look at old Saturday Night Live, man, it is dangerous,
off the wall.
The first 5 years, you can't even believe the bits they're doing. They're doing cocaine bits. They're doing bits where they're clowning blatantly sponsors. You know, they're doing. You know, all kinds of edgy race stuff. And
what was cool about that, though, is they did it with a diverse group of writers.
Right.
You know, I think they had 3 women writers on the first original staff, which was unheard of. And was it 79?
I think it was 75.
So whatever year was it?
I've been watching the first ones again on CISO. They got them all on.
Oh, I got to go check that out. See, because that's a little bit. We're about 7-8 years difference.
I'm 51. How old are you?
43.
Yeah.
So that's that would be I wouldn't have started really understanding Saturday Night Live until a little bit later.
Yeah.
But I got to go watch those old bits.
Oh, you watch the early ones. They don't even know what the fuck they're doing. There's no format. It's like George Carlin comes on. He does an opening monologue. Then they have a band come on. You're like, what? Then they do a couple sketches. Then Carlin comes back on, does another 5 minutes of comedy.
Way.
Then they have a different band come on. Then they have some sketches. They're like, it was awesome. They didn't know what the fuck it was. Let's just throw it.
It just works. It's back. It's like a house party again.
Yeah, watch that one. It's great. The first one, man.
Okay,
it's really cool to watch and see where that went. But yeah, man, it's like I said, it's a different era. Now, it's even a different era for Howard, you know. Do you believe, and I believe, that he did have to reinvent himself because it would have just kind of eventually crashed and burned?
I often wonder if he actually do this with a calculated thought, or did he just evolve as a human being?
Right, grow up. Well, a lot of people say it was this. It was the new producer that came in, the woman.
Yeah, who sort of set him straight a little bit.
Hey, man, you need to get better interviews and better audience because I know a lot of bands and I know a lot of say people that watch out what you get famous for. Let's say Ted Nugent. You know, there is no way Ted Nugent likes his fans from the 70s that were the stoner drinkers, because he didn't drink or get stoned or anything. And I always wondered if he looked out in the crowd like, fuck all these idiots. You know what I mean? Because he's so Ted, the right wing, America and all that stuff. You know what I mean? And I wondered, there's people out there that hate their fans. And can you imagine Howard? He seems like a guy that would be like, oh, this guy coming up. A guy that would pull a Howard prank on Howard.
Yeah.
Maybe fart on him or whatever,
It's funny. I haven't thought about it that way. I feel like, well, first off, I feel like everyone should be grateful for every fan they have. Because you want to entertain to diverse crowds of people. One of the things that we used to always be called in the days that we were like the shock jockey. And we were huge in Toronto. Like we had like 40 shares. Like it was like this was a big show.
Give the people what shares are on radio. So,
it's so
like
dumb.
what's
it basically means 40% of every person it would have been men from like 18 to 34 were listening to us. Other popular shows now would have like 6.
Right.
Like that's considered
but
big.
0 women listen to your show, right?
We had a few women. Well, this is the thing. We were often told we were people's guilty pleasure.
Right.
And that always amazed me. I'm like, well, for your guilty pleasure, so you might not write that down on a stupid form of measurement, which is a diary, and you say who you're listening to, and you might not say it out loud. But you know what? Behind closed doors, you have a couple drinks, and you're like, hey, did you hear what they did on the morning that day? I think my point being is you want everyone. You want your diehards who might be a little bit crazy, it might be a little bit blue collar, so to speak. But
I love the blue collar listener.
Oh, they're loyal as fuck. Yeah. They're amazing.
I love the blue collar listener.
So does Donald Trump.
I love the blue collar listener though that also isn't closed minded. You know what I mean? Because I find a lot of guys. You're like, hey man, you go see such and such movie. Oh man, fuck that. There's no car crashes. You know what I mean, or whatever. I like guys like I'm blue collar, dude. Like I fucking
and it's funny. At the heart of it, so am I. Even though I'm kind of like a city guy and like a little more like socialite. Like I know how I am, but I grew up with a cottage, so we had a small town, and that's always where my heart was.
Right.
And I'll tell you right now, this is a great example in Canada, for example. It's very small town oriented. There's Toronto's the big city, but there's a lot of like kind of small town blue collar looks, and the comedic scene right now, to me, the most brilliant comedians from Canada, who I hope eventually make it out here, guys like a Tyler Morrison, Nigel Grinstead, Jarrett Campbell, like you wouldn't have heard of these guys yet. They are so small town in terms of the way they grew up, but they're so bright in their minds. And I think there's a correlation there, Dean, and I'm sure this is exactly what you are, how you are, is you're actually more well-read. Then now, like these new day, city day, got like people just on their phones and flipping through shit. Yeah. You're more well versed in music. You're more well rounded in culture.
Well, it's the arts.
And
arts contains everything: a good meal, a good film, a good record, a good painting, a good conversation, a fine like something made by hand, like a timepiece or whatever, an amazing automobile, whatever. Arts is everything, and you engulf in it and round yourself out, so when people, that's what's great about comedy. When you're on stage and a guy tries to heckle and he thinks you don't know something, you could just mold him down, by like, oh, really? Yeah, actually, I've been to Costa Rica. You know what I mean? Like row of 10. You ever been here or there? And they're like, oh.
Try and stereotype the fuck out of you. And I think it's really important not to stereotype a blue collar is essentially what I'm saying. That is a shame if people try and do that just because they work at a Wall Street type of job or whatever. It does not necessarily mean that they're much more clever or even, and don't let money gauge what success is either.
Not at all. I know tons of rich people that are boring as fuck. They don't know where to spend their mony. They don't know how to dress.
That'd be a great problem.
They don't know what fucking cars. You know what I mean? And then, you know what I mean? So that's why I always think like I find like myself or a guy like me in a scene of all like rich people, they like to spice it up. I used to read that like Randolph Hearst, he used to like to have like freaks and then like, poets, magicians, then like, rich people and all this different flavor in the party. So it was a good party.
Great parties. I've sometimes thought that I was like the dinner at Schmucks guy, though. Like they would bring me in, and like I had some guys. They brought me down to a Super Bowl back in 2007. Prince played it, by the way. It was fucking epic. And I'm like, did they just bring me to hear like stupid stuff and talking about banging girls or stuff, or did they actually bring me to learn about me? So that might be an insecure part of mine. But it is neat to be around different eclectic characters, no doubt. You learn from everybody.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. So as Howard starts to change, is this when you realize, oh, I got to kind of change too?
I wouldn't say I base it on Howard, because truth be told, Stern didn't come into Canada until like, I don't think he got there till like 98.
Right.
Or 97. And then I started morning radio in 99. So I didn't even really have a lot of time to listen to Stern.
Right.
I was on the same time as him. Did we do that type of stuff that was probably influenced from him? For sure. But was it ever like, oh, we got to listen to see what he's doing to repeat? And that like was never, not only wasn't ever put in practice, it was never even a thought. I just think I got older. I don't know. It's so weird. My dad isn't a funny guy.
Yeah.
He's like a really sweet, nice man.
Yeah.
And I just think the older I get, I kind of want to try and be that sweet, nice guy. But there's still 18 years of entertainment experience to me, which is those default positions again. So I think it's more of that combination. It sucks because I'm like, where's the funny? I don't even know how to find the funny right now, because part of it is I don't want to offend sponsors either.
Right.
Part of it is I'm not really schooled or trained in what you guys are, going up on stages, working on material, working on new bits, developing
it gets down to pushing yourself. That's the thing. Like when you start as a comic, you're going to do all the standard premises, of this and that and this. And same thing with your default. But you have to push yourself to get to the next level. Where's the funny? It comes by listening. You know what I mean? And you go, wait a minute, this could be funny right here. And it's not always the standard stuff. You know what I mean? And that's why you when you look at the great comics, there's no standard stuff there. Of course, we're all in the same world and we're all seeing the same stuff and we're all writing like, okay.
The Trump jokes, for example,
right,
would probably be
exactly.
what's going on. Yeah.
But what's the best Trump joke? And somebody's going to get the best one and all the other ones will be like, you know what I mean?
Well, let me ask you advice. So for me, wanting to now like kind of get outside my comfort zone, try and do more comedy, one of the things I'm doing on the show is that I'm getting my interns to write down shit that naturally got laughs that I didn't even know was going to be funny.
Well, that's why I tape my sets. Because you're like, oh, shit, they're laughing at that. And then you go back and listen to it, and then you try it again. Okay, sometimes they laugh because it was organic and magic, and they'll laugh again. And sometimes it was just that moment and it won't happen.
So you never so you got to at least try it again, though.
Absolutely, man. That's why you tape your sets. It's, you know what the bits are, but what comes in between the bits can be the new gold.
Can you teach funny, though? Like, I mean, I know you got in the game at 44. Can you teach it to people? Like,
I don't think, the genius of learning comedy now is YouTube and the clubs and everything. Like, you can go to the Comedy Store, and I don't know if you can teach it, but you can definitely watch 15 masters or 10 masters in a night, nightly, and start seeing what not to do and what to do. You know what I mean? I remember when I started comedy, I had about 4 pages of premises. And in a week, I scratched them all off. I thought they were all great. And then I went out to the clubs and they were all doing those. I had a skydiving joke, it was real. I went skydiving and my buddy, the plane ran out of gas.
Come on.
Yeah.
Thank God for the parachute.
Thank God for the parachute.
Yeah.
Like, how does a plane fucking run out of gas? And that's a true fucking story. It's like, we're out of here, And, then another guy had a skydiving joke, and I was like, I don't want to do it because they'll be like, he's just doing skydiving joke like such and such.
There's only so many right,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I was really careful. It pushed me to dig deeper. What is nobody talking about? Of course it's super hard. Yeah, and I'm not saying I'm crazy original, but what I'm saying is I've lived my life a little bit, and I can dig into some stories. Like I got this one about the singer for Tesla right now, And once it gets really good, no one will have a story about the singer from Tesla. You know what I mean? So you got to look at yourself of like, I've lived a lot. What was fucking funny that I've lived doing in the last 20 years or whatever.
Well, see, now I'm going to go in my default position. I popped a fake tit once, but that was funny.
Yeah, but,
I know,
but there's another dude out there talking about that.
Is there someone? Okay.
Yeah, I guarantee.
Okay.
You know, I'm sure. You know what I mean? I'm just saying that's just one story in your life. You have to sit down and really dig back and then really be honest. Am I willing to talk about this? Am I willing to talk about, you know?
Well, that's the thing I find really brilliant about comedians is the connection they have with the audience. Like, it's so calming. It's you know, the way you would host a dinner party. It would just be great to every guest coming in, and I feel that you feel like they're looking at you, and even though there's the lights and they really connect with you. And I know when I was on stage, for example, I did not connect with one person in that audience,
right.
which is why it wasn't good. And sometimes other comedians, they don't connect with an audience. That's an amazing skill.
Yeah. Well, you can go up and that's a super rookie move. And I'll even do it now, 7 years in, 3,500 shows. You get up and you forget to engage with them and start steamrolling them with bits. Blam, blam, blam. And I remember once Bill Burr told me, he said, you just steamrolled him. You didn't even give him time to take it in. He goes, it would be like if I met you the first time and you came up and you said, hey, I'm Todd Shapiro. I'm on XM radio. I love strippers. And sometimes I drink at night and I'm going on vacation next week. All at once. And you go, who the fuck is this guy?
Like every finance guy you've ever met in your day.
Yeah, like right there out of the gate. You're like, wait a minute, dude. I don't even know who the fuck you are. You got to stand up for a minute and take it in, you know. Some of that comes from, I only got 8 minutes. I got to get up here and get going. But once you have an hour to do, you can really drive the car. You know what I mean? And go, all right, I'm going to speed here. I'm going to slow down here. I'm going into a turn. I'm going to downshift. I'm going to upshift, whatever. I'm going to hit cruise control here for a minute, whatever. You know?
Do you have off days on stage still?
All the time.
And is that a reflective of you going up on stage? Like, is that reflective of what your mood is? Like, for instance, right now, I have a little bit of a cold. It doesn't usually translate on radio when you have colds. I've never missed a day of work. But, you know, like, I feel like I wouldn't want to go on stage because inside, like, my head's killing and stuff, or do you just forget about that shit?
Yeah, you can't do any of that. I mean, I got ran over on my motorcycle. You were on stage that night.
Yeah, that's fucked up. That's brilliant, bro.
Yeah. I mean... but you do have off. Now, I find what happens is I love to go on thousands of times. But sometimes, before, I never even would fathom taking a day off or whatever. I remember Pete Holmes told me, he goes, oh, you're there. Yeah, I remember that. Where you just go on like 3-4 times a night and everything. It's
too much sometimes, right?
Yeah, and you get a little blurry, like desensitized.
Yes.
You need to feel the angst and the, here I go, I'm going on. You need to feel that a little bit to be like, I'm on, let's do this. Because once it gets so second nature, it's almost like, am I being a robot up here? Holy shit. And that's when you need to, that's why I don't ever have the set in an order, because that makes it dangerous. Like, some people do the set straight in order for a year straight, and I could never do that. I was doing that for a while, and I was like, oh, man, I'm just punching in up here.
Well, that's because you don't like greatest hits, because that's all that is.
That's right. That's right. And it's just it's an order and a rhythm, and it's a map, and comedy should not have a map, and it should be organic and dangerous. Like, you get up there, and you start eating it, you go, I've ate it many a times at the top, and then been like, I got to get this. And by the middle of the show, started just crushing because you just lay in it like a fight.
Kicks
it's a 15-rounder.
Of course.
It's interesting, you know. Now, you started on terrestrial radio, and then you moved to Sirius radio. Is there any money in Sirius radio? You don't have to explain how much you make, but is there money? These guys are, of course, Howard's making gazillions, but are the other people making money?
So we're the Canadian division. So there's some guys, they're making livings. And we have a theory in Canada where we always say that if you make a good career and a decent living out of doing it, but it is that career and it's your passion, you're ahead of the game.
Totally.
So
that's just anywhere, not just Canada.
No, fair enough. But
you know what I mean?
I think the difference in the States, though, and I could be wrong, is that if you make it in the States, you're like, it's game-changing rich. If you make it in Canada, and you're the top guys, I think I was telling you about a comedian named Jerry D. Russell's made it in the States. But if there's guys who've made it in Canada, I don't think they're sitting there going, okay, I have fuck you money for the rest of my life. It's not like they're doing a couple of films and they don't have to do anything for the next 20 years.
Right.
So there's some money in it. Listen, I have a beautiful house. I have a nice car.
Is it $1 million?
No. Do I make $1 million a year? No, I don't make $1 million a year. Do I make decent money by also parlaying my radio thing into other stuff? Like now I represent talent in Canada. I sell sponsorships for a lot of different people, including YouTubers and things. I'm kind of like I actually run my show like its own media agency.
Right.
So I work with my own sponsors. I work with other talent who I sell sponsors to. I consult for companies. I've been in the game for a while, so I feel like I have a lot to offer. And I'm also like, I hate the game. Like I hate the way the conglomerates approach the game. Yeah. And then the conglomerates in Canada are companies called like Bell or Rogers or Chorus.
Those guys.
They're kind of like, I guess, your NBCs or your and they just don't. I don't know. No one wants to break this mold, and it's really a shame. Even in your world, man, as a comedian, like you guys go and do your thing, and until it's like it's undeniable that they like need you, then they like put you in something to go and break the mold.
Oh, absolutely.
But they don't take that chance first. It's the hard work that you put into it. So there's money. Anyway, there's some money, but it's not like the old days. There was more money, I think.
Yeah, in terrestrial radio.
In terrestrial radio, there was more money because you would base it on what a radio station was billing for ad revenues. Right. So if a station was earning $25 million, a morning guy could walk in there and say, "Hey, you got to give me $2 million a year. Like we're bringing you $25 million. The rest of the day parts aren't doing this."
Wow.
So that's sort of where their leverage came in.
Yeah.
So listen, I was never at those numbers. I've made a great living though. I'm a hustler. I'm kind of a grinder.
Yeah.
Like I've made a great living. And the best part for me is it doesn't have to end. Like, hockey has to end. There's certain careers that
doesn't have to end, man. That's what's great. And if you go years and years and years, you slowly build it. I mean, look, I've been doing this show 5 years now, and I remember that I've said it before. The first episode, there was 2 listeners, and I think it was me and my mom. And then in the following week, it was 36. And I was like, whoa, I got 36 people. And then it was like 85. And I was like, holy shit, Now, it's like through the roof. And it's hilarious to think about and I'm not even close to a Rogan or a Burr.
Is Rogan at like 7 million
per episode
or
I think it's like 6 or 7 million.
That's
I don't know exactly, but that's what I've heard. But 6 million is more people listening to this podcast than watch the Tonight Show. That's why when people go, "Hey man, when are you going to get on the Tonight Show or a late night spot?" I'm like,
needs it?
I did Rogan.
Yeah.
And that stays around forever, and I didn't have to burn material. It's like me talking to you about YouTube, burning material.
Yeah.
What people don't understand is when you burn material, you're all the way back at ground zero again. If you burned it on a shitty thing like YouTube or let's say you did a late night spot and you burn that material up, it's like, you've given that away. But it's not into your special.
With the late night talk shows, though, is there sort of like traditional agents or that, like casting directors who are looking more for that on how they put someone into back to that vanilla bullshit?
No,
as opposed to someone maybe on a Rogan that Rogan discovered and then put on, that would they?
Oh, you mean with comics?
Yeah.
Well, I find, which is really, really cool in the industry, which I had no idea, but the guys that book. And I won't mention their names now because people will just like, I'll try to find it or whatever. Sure. I'm sure you can find it. But the dudes that book Conan and The Tonight Show, man, these guys are comedy fucking fans.
Okay.
These guys are not your vanilla.
Good. That's good to know.
They know the rules and they go out every night and they're like, all right, maybe not that bit, but let's get you on, dude. You know what I mean? And they've approached me a few times, and I'm still trying to figure out how to get because what you don't understand is when someone says we need 5 minutes clean, you think, like I thought, was, okay, just no swearing. No, 5 minutes clean.
You can't offend.
It's all kinds of stuff. There's no edgy material. Now Conan really is different because it's on TBS or whatever. You can get away with it. Like Ian Edwards still, to me, has done the most edgy joke of all time.
What did he do?
He did one about the assassination of Martin Luther King, and I'm not going to give it away because I'd rather you go see it on Conan's site.
Okay.
But I knew the bit, and Ian was running his set all week in the clubs, and I purposely didn't watch it because I was going with Ian to Conan that day. I wanted to be in the audience as an audience guy and see it for myself as a surprise. So as I was sitting there, I was sitting next to the band on the side of the stage, not in the crowd, but watching Ian's set. And when he started this joke, I went, "Oh, no way. He's going to get to do this joke?" And I couldn't believe it. I looked at my buddy Doc, who was with me, and I was like, this is, I wonder if he's going to get to do the whole thing. And he did the whole thing. I saw the whole band go, whoa. You know, the band who are edgy people, the band who have seen a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Jimmy, I'd seen them all just like, oh my God, best bit ever.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Fuck. And that's balls this day and age, right?
I remember Conan asked the booker, he said, "You good with this joke?" And the booker was like, "Yeah, man, let's do it." And he's like, "I'll do it. Let's
Good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him.
And that to me is badass. That's some outlaw shit. And that's also not really so outlaw, to me, because you're like, well, he's on TBS late at night. But for him to go, yeah, man,
I do know, but just a quick story about Ian Edwards, who I don't know that well, but have gotten to know.
Yeah, I sent him to your show.
Yeah,
Montreal.
and he was amazing. He was going to come back on this week on the show too. I saw a bit at the store the night I missed you. Actually, the first night I was here in town, and it was a benefit for, I guess, like one of these organizations who help saves dogs and cats and stuff.
Yeah.
So a bit of a corporate crowd, like it's $25.
Charities are always
charity
weird.
a little bit, very white, very waspy.
Yeah.
He goes up and does a bit for 8 minutes on bestiality.
Oh man, amazing!
I think I was the only guy laughing. It was so brilliant what he did.
And an animal benefit. Hilarious.
And he just went on, and his delivery's so slow, and he waits kind of. And then you think it's over, and then he keeps building on it. It was just brilliant.
So great. But that's the kind of stuff, you got
to get.
It's like, people are really quick to like label people like, oh, this guy's a racist, or this guy's that, or this guy's this and that. You know what I mean? And it's like, wait a minute. Think about what the person's saying. It's like a lot of, All in the Family. They thought that show was racist. And then, Carol O'Connor was like, what I'm doing is showing you how dumb it is. What most Americans back then, they were so, they were so closed-minded.
I think what scares me is that people in this day and age can be closed-minded to the humor, thinking it comes from bad places. Like, you know when stuff's coming from a malicious place. You just know that, and if you don't, there's actually something wrong with you, because I think that means the maliciousness is within you.
I really believe that.
Yeah.
I really believe that because they're hunters. Yeah. They want to knock people up. They're like, this guy's an artist. They know he's a comedian and an artist, but let's knock him down. He's enjoying life.
Yeah, I agree.
That blows my mind. It's like when somebody gets a TV show and then, it's another reason I don't want my stuff on YouTube, because you're going to get a TV show. These people dig back in their Twitter.
Oh, they find them all, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then they go, look at this one where he was totally racist, or he wasn't into this religion or whatever. And it's like, these people that are digging and are evil, they're knocking these people's jobs away.
Well, I always say never fuck with people's livelihoods. It drives me crazy, especially in everything that's so subjective. I feel like there's more that in the States and in Canada,
right?
Where it's like, let's get people who have success. Let's find and
these groups, these
everything,
groups, and then you look into the group. It's 4 people.
I think part of the problem is it stems from politics.
Yeah,
like everything's based on smear campaigns. I mean, your last election, people were voting for someone they least, like they least liked, or they liked a little more. It's not like they wanted.
Well, it's like
anyone.
I don't like this person, but I really don't like this person.
And I actually find that so sad of the example it sets, because then it feeds and filters into entertainment. It filters into people in the workplace. Everyone's so fucking catty. Everyone's trying to knock other people down as opposed to elevate themselves. And I find that so sad. I really do.
I just really don't understand that thought of like, especially with artists, and I've talked about it over and over. They starve their entire life. They work for free forever. Then they get a gig, and you're like, well, he's just a millionaire anyway. Let's get rid of him. And it's just like, what it's just like this weird...
Did you hear about that Canadian comic, Mike Ward, who got... they went to the Human Rights Tribunal for he heckled people in a club in Vancouver.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and he got sued or something?
Sued. Like, this was terrible.
Whoa,
this was a terrible precedent in Canada. He heckled and he made fun of some ladies, and it ended up costing him money.
Yeah.
And this is like, I mean, this.
Yeah,
is,
give the rundown. So he's doing a show.
Yeah, he did a show, I believe, in Vancouver, and I think
somebody heckles him.
I believe that, and then he went after them, and he like ripped in them, tore them. And from what I understand, and I'm sorry, I should fact check it a little bit, but anyway, long story short, he got sued. It went to the Human Rights Tribunal, who fined him, basically saying he was guilty for it, and it was a monetary fine. Wow. And this like really shook up the comedic community, because what the fuck's a Human Rights Tribunal at a comedy club? You walk in there, like that's the one last sacred place in this world.
This shit is rated X. Rated X.
And it's the greatest thing in the world. Like, chirp one another, go after one another, and then you walk away, and that's where it stays. Have conversations about it, of course. What made you laugh? What didn't? But it doesn't mean you can't be offended in a comedy club. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
you cannot be offended in a comedy club.
Even in the PC world, it's a lot like comics say this. They notice like the crowd will laugh at everybody you're clowning until you get to their race or religion. And then they're like, wait a minute. And you're like, well, wait a minute. You were just laughing while I was ripping this, and that. That's what Burr was saying, like, wait.
They personalize it. I'll tell you, back in the days of terrestrial radio, where you could go and complain to, you guys have the FCC, we have the CRTC. It was always amazing because it was people complaining over little things that only related to them. But, we did that. We made fun. We always called ourselves sort of like equal, what do we say? And there's equal opportunists. We were like equal offenders.
Yeah,
like,
equal insulters. Yeah, equal opportunity insulters.
And self-deprecating.
We insult them all.
Right? Including ourselves.
Yeah, of course.
And until someone had that thing where if and maybe I'd be more careful now, but I'm using an example that might not even been a complaint, but like you make fun of autism or something.
Yeah.
Now someone is a mother or a father to an autistic child, then they go and complain.
Right.
And that there's something wrong with that premise. You better either complain about everything or nothing at all. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it's a lot like this bullying thing. Like, we all got bullied growing up, and you just kind of got through it, and it toughened you up in the world. If you just put on like what's that, the movie with what's his name, where he puts the earmuffs on every time the kid.
There's something about Mary. Was that?
No.
Oh, that was the Will Ferrell one.
Yeah. Earmuffs.
Yeah,
Vince Vaughn.
Vince Vaughn. Was that old school?
Yeah, it's old school.
Old school. Yeah.
Yeah. Frank the Tank and all that.
Yeah.
But you need to be tough. If you're just raising a globe of soft people, right now would be brutal as hell. People are like, I don't understand what's going on,
It actually drives me fucking nuts how soft people are becoming. And I get deeper with it because people are making such an issue of such small things, and they obviously don't do it. It starts with Facebook or Twitter, and it's with their own friends who validate their opinions. So now all of a sudden they think it's worth more because everyone's agreeing with them. They're not doing it with people whose pages they don't agree on because they don't want to be associated with those people because they're so sensitive. No one wants to have a healthy debate. But the perspective I always give, man, and it's actually really fucking sad. We become so self-indulgent, and we become so selfish and so afraid of what's wrong, instead of looking into things like there's child slavery going on in this world. There's world hunger still.
Yeah.
I mean,
cancer.
Cancer.
Yeah. Still haven't fought cancer.
There are over 3 billion people in this world who make something like under 99 cents a day as earnings or something. Like stuff like, start looking into the facts.
Go battle that shit.
Right. If you're exactly, and that's what people need to go and battle.
Yeah.
And it's sad. It's actually very sad. And everyone's so into themselves and putting themselves forward and trying to fight their own cause as opposed to trying to help other people.
It's not even a real cause either. They just want to be famous themselves. They're like, look at me, I'm like my blog made it in the New York Times, you know?
Everyone wants to be famous.
I know, and it's all down to the Kardashians. I blame them over and over and over. People just go like, well, they're fucking billionaires and they didn't do shit. I want to be rich and do no work.
Like this Cash Me Outside girl?
What's that?
The Cash Me Outside girl?
I don't know what that is, but it's just anything.
I'm glad you don't know what that is.
It's just anything like that. You know what I mean? It's like all people look at is zero work. I want my 15 minutes of fame, and I want to walk around my shitty job and go, did you see? I knocked that guy down, and then they wrote about it.
I personalize it. Sorry to personalize, I should say, but I think the older I get, the actual less famous I would want to be. Like the less, it's not that I was ever famous, but I did well in Toronto, did well in Canada, and continue to grow a program on Sirius. But I think wouldn't it just be easier to be a realtor? You know, because everyone is sort of chasing this thing now, and it's I'm a great radio show host. I know that. I'm a great interviewer. You're a great comedian. There's certain people that should be
I'm a great interviewer too.
You're fucking pretty good, bro. There's things that people should stick to what they're good at.
Totally.
And I'm I'm not trying to sound like an elitist entertainer here, but there's just certain people who shouldn't be even attempting or trying this stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's a false sense of security when you're validating it with the people you know. Go and do terrestrial radio, get ratings from a mass audience. Go and put out a real podcast where you're going to go and get it out there and make sure that you have an audience. And if you don't have an audience, then you're not going to be successful. Work with sponsors. Get up on a stage in a comedy club and see people then react to you who aren't your friends.
Yeah.
That's when you're a true entertainer. And these people, they start to think of themselves as like they're famous.
It's all reality TV, man. It became the garbage of America, and it's exactly.
Then it became the president of your country.
It's just unbelievable. It's just the toilet bowl. You know what I mean? And look at that. Now people are like, "Fuck, maybe I can get on America's Got Talent." And then I can be the governor. You know what I mean? Whatever, man. And
I think Oprah Winfrey's now saying she'll run.
Right.
Right.
And whatever you want to do, fine. But my bottom line is, if you don't work hard, you're not going to, no one's going to care. You know what I mean?
No. And it's back to that career and livelihood. Don't fuck with someone else's livelihood.
Yeah.
If we're doing this for a career, then you've made it.
Yeah.
So, and there's all these flash in the pans. And that's why I admire comedians. Back to what I was saying earlier, going in the clubs and watching guys, or ladies, obviously. You're all such eclectic, fun, compelling, characters and entertainers. And whether it's on or off air, like the conversations that go on in the Comedy Store, I can't keep up with them, and that's what I do for a living.
Yeah.
You guys are like outwitting each other and quick and boom, boom, and it's just unbelievable. And then you go up there and you do it, and it's night after night, and you're kind of also competitive, but you're also respectful of each other's positions.
Totally.
And I think nothing. I'm bored by regular people since the transition of what I used to do into this show, which is interviewing comedians basically for a living. No one else can compare. Yeah. I can't sit at dinner tables. It's all boring. It's all vanilla. And you guys, kudos to all you fuckers. It's amazing.
Well, thanks for doing the show, dude.
Thanks, man. I appreciate being here.
And your show's on Sirius Radio, and it's on, I was on last week. I've been on quite a few times. It's Monday through Friday in the States, 1 to 3.
Yeah, we're 1 to 3 Pacific time.
Right.
We're 4 to 6 Eastern time, and I think you'll have a lot of fun. It's a great. I'm really proud of the.
I'll be on
program.
again this week. I think Thursday.
Yeah, come on for sure. 100%.
Thursday, and
if I'm still, I was a mess out in LA, bro. Like I got too drunk. I got away from my wife and my kid. I got I saw Del Rey's bike one night, and then I was like, saw it the next night. I'm like, dude, what a great bike. And you're like, you told me that exactly last
Yeah.
night. I told my wife when I get home, I think I'm off.
Well, shit, man.
Thanks, bro. I wish I was funnier for you.
Oh, fuck you. Thanks for doing the show.
It's awesome.
Everybody tune into his show on, what number is it? Do you
Channel
know?
168. It's high.
168.
Yeah.
How does that work? Is it
I don't fucking know.
are the lower numbers more of the real shows or something?
The Canadian numbers are just like all from that 158 to I think 169 or something.
Right.
There's like 11 Canadian channels on SiriusXM.
How many years on this so far?
So I've done it, just graduated my 3rd year on SiriusXM.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Am I going to co-host Thursday?
Yeah, bud.
I like co-hosting.
Yeah, come on in. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
fun.
mean, yeah, well, yeah, I got to make sure I have a producer too.
yeah,
I've been
whatever, yeah.
But yeah, no,
Yeah.
please co-host.
Yeah.
You're great. Listen, honestly, all comedians should be radio guys because no radio guys should be radio guys, if you know what I'm saying. Get people in there who can bring it every day.
All right, everybody, make sure you subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. I just clicked over 803 reviews. I like this on iTunes. 4 stars. You know what I mean?
Can I tell you my greatest honor? And it sort of like revolves around what you're saying. The show on SiriusXM is great. Everything I did in Trust Radio was amazing. In 2014, I was awarded like best new podcast of 2014 when there were 5 of them.
Badass.
And I was like, that slide, that screenshot for me, that's like winning an Oscar for me. Like it's really
totally.
that, and it's the Canadian arm of iTunes, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm not talking.
Exactly.
It wasn't going against Rogan or anything.
Yeah.
But that slide, I have the screenshot and I put it in. I show it to people. We're so lucky to have people on this platform too, man.
So subscribe, and everybody. Also, if you're tuning in today, Monday, I am in San Jose today, tomorrow, and Wednesday at the San Jose Improv with Bill Burr. Those shows are sold out, but I'm just letting you know if you are going so you get there early and don't miss me. March 24th, I'm going to be at the Fox Theater in Oakland with Mark Maron. Ontario Improv in California, not Canada. Ontario Improv, California, April 13th, 14th, 15th. I'm headlining the Ontario Improv, my first time. And then I'm going back to my favorite place on earth, the Comedy Works, April 26th through the 30th. And then Minnesota, my first time out there, June 14th through the 18th. I'm headlining House of Comedy. Looking forward to seeing all you guys. Like I said, thank you for keeping the candles lit. We'll see you next week.